Hello, Winona State University students. This is Paul Schollmeier, Council Member Paul Schollmeier. This is a Warrior Vote video. I hope that it works and answers some of the questions you're asking. I'm going to start out by giving you some background about who I am, and then I kind of will just simply answer the questions um, that you sent to me in the video. I apologize ahead of time for um, either the quality of the video or for not being more creative. Um, it's more a function of time and the difficulties with the pandemic than it is anything else. So let me give you some background. The past 30 or 40 years, oh, by the way, I probably will be reading some of this. It's scripted, and it is how it's going to have to be. The past 30 or 40 years of my life have been dedicated to improving our natural environment, as well as educating people in our community about the world we share. I think Winona is probably the most beautiful city in the state. I grew up here. I moved back here with my wife. The city is a leader in education, the arts, industry, agriculture, and shipping. We should continue to promote our cultural assets and invest in an infrastructure that supports them and the residents of the city. I grew up in Winona, working for small businesses and playing in the bluffs and valleys and on the Mississippi. I graduated from Winona High School in 1976, the College of St. Teresa here in Winona in 1982, which no longer operates, with a degree in art. St. Paul College in 1996 as an interpreter for the deaf, and St. Mary's University in 2008 with a master's degree in instruction. I'm a small business owner that focuses on safe and energy efficient homes. Over the past 20 years, I've worked in the Winona area as an interpreter for the deaf and a middle school science teacher. Over the past 7 years, I've served on the Winona County Soil and Water Conservation District, 2 of them as chair, and the last 3.5 years as City Council Person at Large. A little further back in history, in the 80s and early 90s, I was an environmental activist, organizing large river cleanups on the Mississippi River and consulting with the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources in the late 80s to develop what's now called the Adopt a River program. I'm an arts advocate, and both my wife and I have art degrees, and we've had our own fine art printmaking studio for the last 20 years. Shortly after understanding the seriousness of climate change, we decided to sell our cabin in northwestern Wisconsin and move into Winona so we could reduce our commute. We rebuilt a home, basically a model home to be near net zero, kind of on the edge of town behind Sugarloaf. If you use Highway 43 to go up to the interstate, you may have seen it. It's the last solar system on your way out of town. We were able to live there for 11 years, and during that time, we welcomed at least 1,000 middle and high school students, science students, to tour the home. We had numerous college classes come and tour the home, and hundreds of additional adults from Winona and outside the community tour the home during solar home tours. That home is the only Green Star Gold home in the city. We're proud of it. Unfortunately, we've had to, because of health issues, move closer into town. I'm an avid cyclist and a silent sport enthusiast. I can be found on our local waters paddling and even, despite my age, on the local ice wall climbing. I have been and continue to be a member of a group called Pedal for the People, a local pedaling group that raises small amounts of money to give to local charities. Recently, because of health issues, we've moved even closer to the center of town, remodeling another home with a single level with many of the same efficiency features as our previous home. And we're generating solar as well. I'd like to show you a picture of both, if I may. I'll share the screen here. Let's see if I can get that to come up. The solar home that we built, remodeled in 2002, had originally had a solar thermal system, and also had solar PV. And let's see if I figure this out right, we'll get this up. We're getting there. Patience, please. So let's see. I think you can see this is our solar home. We've got a solar thermal array, which no longer exists, and a dual axis tracker. This was taken about 5 years ago. So that's the home that we have been living in. All of this home was completely redone, and like I said, it's the only Green Star Gold home in the city. So you asked the question why it's important for Winona State University students to vote. Well, clearly, post-secondary education plays a huge economic role in our community, really pumping in more than $200 million annually into the community, its businesses, and the universities themselves. I understand that impact, and students should as well. Ultimately, we have to share our community with the colleges and their students, and vice versa. Many students live off campus, rent property, use our roads, cross our streets, and frequent our businesses. Because of this patronage, students should receive every accommodation and be able to navigate our community safely. Your city council is responsible for the infrastructure that is so often used by students. However, it has been in the past the practice of city leaders to ignore students' requests for safer streets and collaborative efforts to move safely throughout our community. Your vote does make a difference between a progressive listening council or a conservative good old boy council that caters only to developers and landlords. A case in point would be the Broadway Road Diet. The Broadway Road Diet was approved by a split vote on City Council. I have been a supporter and a promoter of the Broadway Road Diet, which will make it safer for students to cross Broadway to get downtown to our local businesses, but not just students, residents of the community. Not only that, as the Laird Norton building is rehabilitated for use by Winona State University, more students will be crossing Broadway. The Broadway Road Diet will make that much easier for pedestrians, cyclists, and actually quite safer for automobiles. You are also wondering about my perspectives on higher education. By now you should know that I'm a lifelong learner. I have a 2, a 4, and a 6-year degree. I've gone to 7 different colleges, training in electronics, art, interpreting, education, so that I can bring those skills into my life experience. I did ultimately become a teacher. I believe education is the most important experience a human can have and should have to understand the world around us. You also ask, how do I view Winona State University's place and contribution in Southeast Minnesota and the Winona community? WSU and the other colleges have a large economic impact on the community and Southeast Minnesota at large. Professionals from the WSU, along with their skills, are frequently mentioned in Southeast Minnesota statistical reports as they relate to water and soil science, as student teachers in our private and public schools, as beginning nurses in our clinics and senior homes, and as advocates for inclusion of science and fact-based studies for development and community services. The college plays a large role, and I will never forget that. And trust me, residents know that. It's kind of a good evil thing. They rue the fact that there are 10,000 college students in town, but they thrive on the economic impact. Wire Vote is also wondering, what will I do to protect the environment? Well, if that hasn't become obvious yet, I'm not sure what I can do. You know, quite honestly, I'm considered an environmental leader in town. The environment plays a large role in my life and how I interact with and lead by example in our community. An example of that is our solar home, our Green Star Gold home on Highway 43, and our current home that is just recently finished with high efficiency in mind. My wife and I have been labeled sometimes as the organic couple or environmental active officials. Really, all we do is use science and facts to inform our decision making. That's always about serving the common good. I'm a founding member of Healthy Lake Winona and a founding member of Bluffland Environment Watch. The former currently active in improving Lake Winona water quality, and the latter a group of concerned citizens that work to prevent poor land practices in the 90s and early 2000s. What are your views on immigration and its impact on both the local and national economy? Well, even during these pandemic times, many of our local industries and manufacturers are short of laborers. We can't get enough people to fill the available labor shortages. There are ads constantly in our local papers for workers. We are in a country of immigrants. We live in a city colonized by white immigrants pushing out the indigenous inhabitants by the 1860s. America was colonized and became the country it is because of immigrants. We should welcome them to our community and to our country. Finally, what will you do to work for social equity and racial justice? Our council has approved via split vote to add social workers to our law enforcement staff. Whether they are social workers or not has yet to be decided. The goal is to try to provide a community service that is not armed and has necessary training in social and mental health issues. Their addition does impact property owners via additional tax, and it may be difficult during the pandemic to add to residents' tax burden without making cuts in an already lean city budget. I believe our community should focus on quality of life issues, and that social justice should be a primary decision maker for community leaders. I was one of the council persons to support this additional staffing. I also think that that the city, in collaboration with the 3 colleges in town, should plan and facilitate a series of town hall listening sessions that bring in experts in the field of racial justice from around the country to our community, so all residents, especially elected leaders, can attend and learn from their expertise. As stated earlier, we must educate ourselves to make informed decisions. If we lack an understanding of racial inequities, we cannot make decisions that improve upon those inequities. Really, quite honestly, I enjoy being a city council person. I would like to get your vote to support and continue to support the work that the city has done over the last 8 years to make quality of life a primary factor in our decision making for the city of Winona. I appreciate the time that you've given me so that you can make an informed decision in your vote on November 3rd. If you can't make it to the polls on November 3rd, remember, in Minnesota, you can vote early by absentee or mail-in ballot. Thanks again for your time.